Again, I'm Thomas Wright. I'm the school resource officer for Basalt Schools. I take care of all 3 of our buildings. And primarily my main job is safety. It's not just fun and games where I get to hang out in the parking lot and tell you to stop or go when you drop your kid off. But I'm smiling.
Always.
So, the last few years we've seen vape really start to develop, not only with adults, but with youth. And so I'm just going to open up with some statistics that we recently learned for the state of Colorado. Colorado is #1 in the nation for underage vaping.
She doesn't know what vaping is.
Oh, we're going to talk about it. So, to kind of answer that real quick, so vaping is today's cigarettes. Okay. Electronical. See? Okay. So if you take Pitkin, Eagle, and Garfield County, we're the top counties in the state for underage vaping. So when I say that it's really important that we know what's going on with vaping, the statistics show that we really need to know what's going on with vaping with our kids.
So right here in our county, we're like as bad as it gets.
So what is vape? And I'll just try to simplify it the best that I can. Is inhaling and exhaling an aerosol. Sometimes we call it a vapor that's produced by either an e-cigarette or a similar device, which are all of these devices. Everything that I have on this table is some form of vape. So we use e-cigarettes or vape, vaping, juuling, a lot of these different terms because it's not a tobacco smoke that gets produced when we use these devices. It's an aerosol, or like a mist. So a common lie that gets told to our kids is it's just a water vapor, so it's not really harmful. But it actually consists of a lot of different fine particles. And those particles contain toxic chemicals. Those chemicals have been linked to cancer, as well as respiratory and heart disease. So the very first question I always get, well, is it safe? Kids always ask me all the time, well, I hear that it's safer than smoking tobacco. And I always say, well, is it safer to get hit by a train or a semi? So, no, it's, yeah, I mean, it's safer, but it's still harmful to our bodies. There's over 200 known poisons in cigarettes, and there's twice that amount in marijuana. Ah, wait a minute. The marijuana industry says it's safe to smoke marijuana. It's a lie.
Did you say toxins or chemicals for the 200?
200 known chemicals.
No chemicals.
Mhm. And so you can vape or use e-cigarettes that contain nicotine, marijuana. Further out east, they've started to vape alcohol. They're vaping methamphetamines, heroin, just about anything that you can put into the tank, they're vaping.
Okay. Dice que eso se pueden usar aquí, se usan más para tabaco y marihuana, pero en otras partes de Estados Unidos, todo lo que se va a comer es usar para
And I get kids all the time that tell me, I'm just vaping the juice. It doesn't have nicotine or anything in it, it's just the juice. All juice that I've done, everything that I've done any research on or tested, they all contain nicotine. I don't care if it's on the label or not, it contains nicotine. And so the vape and all the products were allowed to come onto the market without any kind of research or studies. They gave them a 5-year window to allow them to, hey, sell this product. Doesn't seem like it's really killing anybody. It would kind of open a free market. And so what we're discovering is the longer that this is on the market, the more health effects that we're seeing on people's health, not to mention the poisons that we're starting to identify in the vape. And there's a lot of dangerous toxins and metals that are being off-gassed from the vape. And so the biggest thing that has changed, if you watch my vape last year, is a lot of doctors are starting to come on board and they're refusing to endorse vaping as any healthy alternative to smoking.
I'm a Denver Health Family Medicine doctor. I spend a lot of my time working on smoking initiatives. So vaping is when you take a liquid, and that liquid is vaporized into a substance that you inhale into your lungs. That inhalation is made up of generally four main substances. It's the flavoring. There's nicotine, glycerin, and polyethylene glycol. So what's interesting about the vaping liquid is that the flavors mask what's actually happening in your body. What's happening in your body, if there's nicotines there, is you're developing a tolerance and addiction to it. So we know that people who vape are more likely to start smoking. We also know that people who start vaping and use nicotine have a hard time stopping because that nicotine is addictive. So young adults need to know that they are being specifically targeted by the manufacturers of the vaping devices and the vaping liquid because they're susceptible to the addiction that's being caused by the nicotine and the other substances in the vaping liquids. It's not easy to know how that's going to affect them long term, but we know it's addictive, and we know it's expensive, and we know the manufacturers are making a whole lot of money selling it. What bothers me most about the manufacturers of the vaping devices is that they portray healthy lifestyles and a fresh alternative to smoking, while developing a product as addictive and habit-forming in the long run. As a doctor, I cannot endorse vaping for teens or adolescents. We know it's bad.
So some, sí.
Por ejemplo, ahí se ve que el muchacho está fumando y la muchacha no, pero el cigarro ya ve que pasa lo mismo, dicen que es más, hace más daño al que lo huele que al que lo fuma. Ahí pasa lo mismo.
Okay, so she's asking, in the video, the boy was vaping and the girl was just right there. She's asking about secondhand. With cigarettes, secondhand smoking is bad, and she's asking if that's the same with this.
So that's a great question. I don't have any information about it because the vapor dissipates and disappears so quickly. That's what makes this so attractive, is because it disappears so quickly.
Dice que no tiene una respuesta para eso, pero lo que pasa es que es vaporizado. Y cuando rápido, es difícil, lo que lo hace atractivo es que es vapor y se va libre, no se queda.
So with the smoke, it lingers and hangs in the air. And so you have an opportunity to rebreathe it. Perfecto. Okay. So to kind of piggyback on what we've already talked about tonight, the reason why vape is such a problem with nicotine, it affects brain development.
What does it cause? I'm sorry?
It affects brain development.
Afecta cómo se va creando el cerebro, desarrollando el cerebro.
So the brain is really complex, although we heard a presentation that made it sound really simple. I really like that.
That's because it's too complex for me to explain.
So there's some really cool things in our brain, like dopamine receptors and different things like that, where our body picks up messages for pleasure.
So nuestra mente tiene receptores que hacen cosas que son adictivas, los receptores que tenemos en el cerebro.
And nicotine right now is one of the most highly addictive substances that we know.
Y ahorita la nicotina es una de las cosas más adictivas que existen.
So, and we'll briefly talk about identifying vape, but pretty much it doesn't matter whether a vape looks like this or like this. Or like this, or this. They all have basically the same components. They have a tank that holds the product that they're vaping, the juice. They have a mouthpiece and a power source.
¿Qué precio tiene?
She's asking about how much they cost.
It totally varies. A mod like this can be anywhere from $100 to $300. Totally depending on the power. There's so many variables. You can run down to 7-Eleven and buy a kit for anywhere from $40 and less. And so, if you look at my computer, do you notice anything unusual about my computer?
pen.
So it's actually charging a vape device and has been here the whole time.
Eso es una de esas
So a lot of people just think that this is some type of electronic device, like a thumb drive. That's why it's right under our noses and we overlook it.
Por eso, no es porque quiero comprar, es porque quiero saber qué precio, porque uno le da dinero.
She's saying that she was just asking because sometimes we give our kids money, and so she was
Oh,
wondering
yes.
if they could afford it.
See? Well, they can afford it.
How is vaping work? Even though there are a ton of different devices out there, ranging from vape pens to box mods, all vaporizers have these few basic components in common. A battery, a coil, a wick, and e-liquid. The e-liquid is drawn onto the coil by the wick. From there, the battery pushes electricity through the coil, heating the e-liquid until it vaporizes, creating a vapor that's then inhaled. Everything beyond that is basically customizations of these components. Some devices have more batteries, some have more coils, some use different kinds of wicks, but all vaporizers essentially work in this same basic way. Thanks for watching.
So some of the vape devices, the coil is hidden, it's built into the device. But they all have a way to basically superheat the liquid so it turns it into a vapor. So there's many different types of vapes. Some essential oil companies have started making their own vape juice. There's flavored oil or juice. There's CBDs, nicotine. There's some devices that will allow you to smoke marijuana. I'm going to call it in the raw form or the plant form. You can vape it, it superheats it, so it's not like smoking it. And then there's some wax, marijuana wax conversion kits that you can use to vape. And so while we're here, on this picture here in the middle, I mean, this is totally looks like something that an adult would use, right? I mean, adults would have this. I just kind of think about that for a moment. So our students here in Basalt, I hear a wide variety of terms that they're using for vaping, whether it's juuling, cloud chasing, skitzing, riding the mist, a lot of different things. And they try to come up with a lot of different code words so they can talk as they pass us in the hallway for what they're doing or what they want to go do. Probably the most common term that I hear is juuling. And that's just because of what the device is called. It's called a juul.
That's your price point budget device.
You got it. So the majority of our kids use a juul, and so it looks something like this.
No, she's asking if it's a USB. Es lo mismo que está ahí.
Wait, you
Es
pass
un
it.
aparatito.
Can you pass it around?
Yeah. And so it'll, and afterwards we'll come up to the table, but if you start seeing what I call pod trash, if you see those laying around, your kid's vaping.
¿Puedo tomarlo para mirar?
Yes, I will pass it.
La va a pasar.
Okay. And so, this is a refill.
Eso nomás es,
So they can, all they have to do is purchase a new pod, load it, as long as it's charged, tap it on the side, and we're ready to go.
So los aparatos, los compran nomás una vez y son los
Sí, lo puedes tomar.
Ajá. Y es lo único que se... Eso, son las de chargers. Sí, es la recarga. Si eso ve la tapaderita, esas naranjas.
And I'll pass these around as well. These are chargers and just a different look to them.
She's asking how you would use this.
So once you turn that on, you activate it by inhaling.
What's the advantage of like inhaling or vaping heroin?
I cannot explain a drug addict's mind.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. I mean, is it
I will tell you,
different effect?
so, yeah. So if you can kind of, we'll keep moving if you'll watch that. So a good question was, hey, why would I want to put other things in the vape, like heroin, other drugs, different things like that? I can't really explain why a drug addict's doing that, but what I will tell you is detection is the #1 reason that they do it, okay? They don't want law enforcement to detect it. And what I kind of shared towards the end is whenever we talk about marijuana, is a kid could stand next to me and have a vape, and he could be vaping marijuana, and I'm not going to be able to detect the odor any different than if he was vaping a nicotine or some of the sweet juice. That's why they use vape, is because they can go undetected by law enforcement. They can put anything in there that they want. You can take an 18-year-old kid, will get on YouTube and will learn how to take these jewels and take the pod and pull apart the pod and put whatever they want to vape inside that pod. So in the state of Colorado, you can be 18 to legally vape just like you're smoking a cigarette, and they could stand next to me and they could be vaping heroin, they could be vaping methamphetamines, they could be vaping marijuana. Unless I test what's in that, I'm not going to know.
So I have a quick question. You covered this last time I saw your presentation, and I guess I was confused because you were saying how in high school you could tell if they were doing like the flavored juices, you could smell those?
So that's the kind of the giveaway for, so if you're walking up and down the hallway and all of a sudden you smell mango, somebody's vaping.
But why is the mango you can smell? You can't smell.
So, and let me clarify. So even the marijuana, they're flavoring it to where it smells similar to the regular vape. Okay?
She has a question. She's asking if they vape, like if they get the same signs, I guess, as if they were smoking marijuana. Yeah. Do you get the same? Can you tell?
So if we're just vaping nicotine, we're not going to see the same signs as like vaping marijuana. When someone uses drugs, any kind of controlled substance, our body can't help it, but it tells on ourselves. Our eyes tell on ourselves, our actions, our behaviors when we're vaping any kind of drugs, it's still going to come through.
Okay. Sí. She's
So-
asking what the signs are.
Sure. So let's get through, and then we'll do questions at the end here. And if you want to write down your questions so you don't forget, that'd be great. So what's in vape juice? Vape juice has vegetable glycerin, propylene glycol, a lot of different flavorings, diacetyl, nicotine, water. Those are some of the basic components. Propylene glycol is very similar to antifreeze. This is what they call a food grade propylene glycol. It's what carries the flavor. The diacetyl, if you get on YouTube and start looking up vape, you're going to see all of these shops that sell their products that are going to tell you all of the bad things are a lie, because they want to sell you stuff. Okay?
Sorry, I was just
Nope.
reading it.
So, a lot of different chemicals in vape.
Que hay muchos químicos. Uno de los químicos es así, como que es de nosotros tenemos cetanol, pero es
¿Son dulces que compran en la tienda?
no, es con sabores.
My biggest issue and concern is, if you're an adult and you choose to do this, that's your business. Okay? Right now, my big battle is, if you're not aware, vape, all the products, the juice, the devices, are all produced by tobacco companies.
Que todo es producido por un
And so, whenever they tell me that they're not advertising to our kids, it really, your favorite word, pisses me off. Okay? So, the flavors that they're making: banana cream, beach bum, berry blast, blueberry, coconut, dragon fruit, mango, strawberry, all of these different things. Yeah. I don't know any. Are they advertising to adults here? No. Bueno. So this is a storefront in Manhattan. This is all vaping products that is in their front window. Who are they advertising to here? I mean, we've got a little cow that's sitting down here. We've got all these bright colors, fruity, everything. This is to our kids. That's the whole purpose of the advertisement. More flavors. Hey, we got the gingerbread man here. Candy King, the Milkman. Then we've got some that kind of look like Jim Beam, coffee, Mountain Dew, all of these different. So they're not advertising to adults. And so the next thing that I get from our kids is like, hey, what's the big deal? It's just nicotine. Okay, it's not like all this other stuff that I'm putting into my body. So what is the big deal about nicotine? So nicotine is poison. Okay, just 30 to 60 milligrams of nicotine, which is a drop of pure nicotine in liquid form, is a lethal dose for an average adult. It will kill you. Nicotine can be lethal to children, and doses that are as small as 10 milligrams. That's just a very small amount. So the bad thing with nicotine is it can be absorbed through the skin. So if you can imagine someone who has nicotine and they have it in this tank and it gets spilled and a child comes in contact with it, it could be hazardous. We've seen children be hospitalized because of the contact with nicotine. Nicotine poisoning has become a very common thing with these mods. So when we vape, it takes about 7 to 10 seconds for that nicotine to travel and get to the receptors in our brain. And then there's just a whole bunch of chain reactions that happen in our brain that tell us, ooh, this is good. I have to have it. I can't stop it. We're not going to talk about that. So, the next question I get from parents is, how do I tell the difference between whether or not my kid is vaping nicotine or is vaping marijuana? So one of these is marijuana. I don't know. So this is marijuana. And so the marijuana industry says, no, our product looks totally different, doesn't look the same. I would argue, whenever you come up and look at this afterwards, it looks the same. The juice looks the same. There's no difference. So in some of the devices they say, well, we mark them a special way, but I'm just telling you, unless you deal with this day in and day out, I mean, a vape sat on the charger on my computer and we didn't even notice it. Okay, Officer Wright, you taught me how to identify these devices. I got bad news for you. This is what the industry is doing. So our marijuana shop here in town, this is what they have for sale. Okay? Here, in town.
Like a Ventolin,
Okay.
like a for the asthma.
Yeah, I got asthma. Mom, I got asthma. I've been around. Feel good. Feel good. Okay? I'm just doing my homework, Mom. Just doing my homework with my pen. Homework. I haven't seen too many of our kids working in the shop. But we've got drink containers, key fobs. My favorite that I saw in Denver was this sweatshirt. The string actually turned into a vape, and they could vape right through their sweatshirt. So we've talked about the statistics. I just want to briefly touch on the message that we're trying to send to our kids. Because our kids think that everybody's doing it. And I'm not going to lie to you, we have a really high percentage of our students who do vape. But the message that we need to send to our kids is that not everyone's doing it. Do we have a high percentage of kids trying it? Absolutely. We have close to 40% that say that they've tried vape. NPR News said that at least 50 to 60% of teens are using vape.
Colorado or in general?
In general. Okay? I want you to keep in mind that teens are also college students.
Yeah, because it's
Okay.
25 years
Yes.
old and they are in college.
And so, right now, vaping in college is like the biggest fad, the most popular thing.
This is what I am here.
So last year was really kind of our first year that we really saw a huge occurrence. And so we have vaping in middle school. It's not just at the high school. We have a lot of vaping that happens here in middle school along with the high school.
Aquí en esta escuela,
Sí,
en esta
sí. Some of my marijuana vapes came from the middle school. So, let me back that up just for a moment. So the Food and Drug Commissioner has declared that vaping is an epidemic nationwide.
The what, I'm sorry?
The Food and Drug Commissioner has declared that it's out of control. So our governor, at the beginning of this school year, declared that Colorado was in basically a state of an emergency with underage vaping. And so the FDA, all of the commissions that control the food and drug, they've moved to try to remove the flavorings because that seems to be what attracts youth. And they're working on regulating, not just letting there be free market on vape now. So quickly, our kids can get this anywhere, and it doesn't matter what age. They get on the internet, and they can go and get a prepaid Visa or credit card from City Market. That's their age verification on the internet, and they can buy it on the internet and have it shipped to the house. And I have the most common way that middle schoolers are getting it is they're getting it from their brothers and sisters. So what we're doing at in the town of Basalt, a couple of different things. One, our city council pushed through a new rule that says you cannot purchase any tobacco, vape, anything unless you're 21 or older.
Has that been effective?
No. So, and this is why. Because you can just leave town and go to Elgibel and purchase it, and if they're not in town limits, they can be 18. It's just like what Aspen did the same thing, and then they could go to the ABC and go to Roxy's and purchase their vape, because it's technically outside the town of Aspen. So we have had some good things. We've had a couple of stores that have decided they're just not going to carry vape products anymore. So I feel like we're moving in the right direction when it comes to that.
Aspen just banned all flavors, didn't they?
Say again?
Aspen just banned all flavors.
Yes. I don't know if it's gone into effect. I know that
No, I
that's
think
what they
it
were
just-
moving towards.
Just today, I think
Yeah,
that passed.
okay. So,
They banned all flavors in the city of Aspen, but hopefully that'll trickle down Valley as well.
so this is what happens when we find someone in possession of a vape device, or if they've been vaping, or they've been around someone who's vaping. They get a referral to Youth Zone from the Salt Police Department. Is what happens on the first time. And so Youth Zone is an entity that's based in Glenwood Springs that helps with more of the minor violations. They do restorative justice. They offer drug and alcohol rehabilitation, counseling, and some different things like that.
I just want to say, the school district just adopted 2 months ago Second Chance as well. Okay.
And so the school, because we're looking at this very much like when we were in school, it was smoking. It's kind of like today's smoking. I don't think it benefits us to suspend a kid out of school for a first-time offense. So our district runs from Basalt to Glenwood, and we're really working on trying to have some unified discipline. And part of the process is we have a program called Second Chance.
What was it called?
Second Chance. And that's where we get to use Paul. And Paul comes to us in many different forms. He gets to work with grants, he gets to work with the middle school and high school, but that's a program that we get to tap into, that he can present to our kids. So when it comes to vaping marijuana, it looks a little bit different. Because it's a controlled substance. You have to be 21 or older to be in possession, purchase it, or anything like that. So my actions look a little bit different. Depending on the amount that they're in possession of, the court's given me leeway that I can, first-time offense, go to Youth Zone. But for marijuana possession on a school campus, because we receive federal funding, we have to look at it a little bit differently. There's probably going to be some suspension. So that's kind of the sunburn version, what I like to call, of vaping. It gets really in depth, but I want to honor the time tonight, and so that's kind of a brief introduction to vaping. And so we had 3 presenters tonight, and so I want to open it up to ask questions of any of the subjects that we talked about. And once we get through questions, if you desire to stay and want to look at some of the things that I have on display, you're most welcome to come up and ask me questions. I will tell you that everything that I have on the table was confiscated from Basalt students.
what is more dangerous, the vaping or the alcohol? Because most of our kids are drinking alcohol. So the weekend, only weekend, the weekend. So.
Yeah, I really hate to put what's more dangerous because, so my son vaped for 3 years, and he started getting sick and started having problems breathing. And kind of the short version is we were able to finally get a lung scan, and we discovered that his lungs are full of polyps, which is like before you get cancer. We couldn't figure out what was going on because he was always told, hey, vaping's safe, it's no big deal. He told the doctor he didn't smoke because he didn't consider vaping as smoking. And so we went through several months and we finally discovered all of that was because of the vaping. And so now his lungs are full of polyps that will not go away. And so it's hard for me to say, is it safer than drinking? You know, we see an immediate effect with drinking. And so the immediacy danger of alcohol is there, as we just saw in our community. But over a period of time, they're both going to eventually kill you. Momento.
There are a lot of national articles out there about how addictive it can be to vape, and that kids can't stop once it gets like how fast does that addiction kick in for vapes?
It's almost immediate. And I have high school kids who are coming to my office and they're telling me, hey, I need help. I can't stop. I'm addicted. I don't know what to do. And so that's where, you know, we work with the different second chance program, a lot of the different programs to try to, because I mean, it's just addiction. I mean, our brain processes it just like we're addicted to anything else. There's a stronghold, and that's why it's so detrimental to our kids' bodies, because their brain hasn't developed. And so when they're putting these substances in their body, it's rewiring how their brain is working permanently. And so we're interfering with brain development until 25, and now even the new science is saying, because of our social media and electronic devices, that might be edging up even 2 to 3 more years.
So what I've learned when I was in grad school of all places is that nicotine is the most addictive substance there is. It is the fastest you can get addicted to, more than heroin. It takes you're in withdrawal within 20 minutes of finishing one cigarette. So that means your brain is craving it again in 20 minutes. So it is, and it's also the toughest addiction to give up.
Which one? The vape?
Nicotine. Yeah.
Nicotine.
Nicotine.
And that's in the vape too.
It's the same because
In both of them, yeah.
Yeah. Nicotine comes from tobacco. So this little pod is a pack of cigarettes. This is a pack of cigarettes, and I've seen kids rip through this. Some will rip through it in a morning and have another one in the afternoon. Some take just a day. This is a whole pack of cigarettes.
And how much are those? Same prices?
So they'll come in like, I think, a 3-pack, and they can get it for roughly about the same as cigarettes. Yep.
One of the moms was asking, is there testing, not necessarily where you take them to the doctors, but tests that parents can give their kids to see if they're using drugs?
There are kits that you can buy over the counter. My best advice is you get what you pay for, and sometimes you can get false positives, false negatives. I would always work with my physician if you were interested in doing any kind of drug testing of your kid.
So some of them we see that they blow out the smoke and it's very big puff of smoke. There's some though that don't produce anything, right?
Right. And so some of the bigger mods, or the bigger, they purposely buy those because they want to make, so they'll go to these conferences where it's like art, and they're making these, like when we were smoking cigarettes, and we would puff these little rings and try to do different things like that. I mean, it's literally, so our kids aren't doing anything different than what we did when we were that age. It's just there's new technology.
Somebody on my airplane was puffing on like what looked like a vape pen next to me, and I thought, that's interesting. I've never seen that before, and of course it didn't see anything or smell anything. So I was just curious what she was getting.
Yeah, the smaller ones, it's almost instantaneously that it's gone.
Okay.
And that's why it's so hard to detect. And the kids make it a game. I mean, whenever they're snapping or on Instagram or whatever, they'll try to see who can get by with vaping in class. The teacher will be up at the board and they'll kind of take a picture of themselves real quick, and then it's gone away, and they're like, what's going on? And so, I mean, it happens. It's happening. So, any questions for the ladies' presentation?
I think you trumped us.
Okay.
I would say.
So this is what I'm going to do is, if you need to leave, you're most welcome to leave. And I thank you for coming out tonight. We've recorded this again tonight, like we've done many of our presentations, and I'll have you share how to get access to that. But if you want to stay and ask questions, you're most welcome to, but I want to honor those that need to leave.
In January of this year, we released a vaping module for all of our teachers, so we required all of our teachers in 5th through 12th grade to get that PD, and we are almost done with the parent version, so we'll be releasing a parent module on vaping as well through the newsletter and the social media pages for the district within probably the next 2 weeks.
And presentations for the kids.
The kids are getting presentations in school. We've been trying to put these out. This
So,
one is for parents to understand this. Like if you need to review, or if your spouse is
every eighth grader gets a vape presentation, and then at the high school, every kid that goes through health class gets a presentation.
You're saying the brain one should be to the kids, so they understand that
It's so empowering if they know what's going on.
See?
We're saying I think really to do it as an audio and listen to it like in the car, brainstorm. Yeah.
So if your child is seeking out a lot of private time, trying to hide their behavior, it's hard with nicotine because as they've been doing nicotine for a while, they can't go long periods of time without seeking it out. And so they're going to find excuses to either get away from you so they can vape, go in private, they'll get the shakes, they'll get the jitters, agitated.